Hello guys, welcome to my channel. I hope everything's okay in your life. In this video you will find an updated version of series I prepared in the previous years. You're in luck for listening to the explanation because I felt the need to quickly discuss the content of the video. Each video will feature an interview with a class master about either the Succession or Awakening versions of a class. All videos, including the older ones, will be available in the playlist you see on the screen. You can find the link of the playlist in the pinned comment section. The purpose of this video series is to help you understand the basic role of the class within the game. I must clarify that it is not a deeply detailed guide. You will watch an interview in a conversational style aimed at answering the fundamental questions of those interested in playing a class. The class masters featured are experienced players who have dedicated thousands of hours to their class and to the Black Desert Online. You may recognize some and not the others, but unfamiliarity does not make them bad players. All the class masters mentioned have proven themselves in Black Desert Online world. Please be respectful when sharing your thoughts. Enjoy watching. Hello guys, welcome. Today's guest is Rilok for Succession Ranger class. Welcome Rilok, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. Happy to be here.
May you please introduce yourself? Who is Rilok? Where are you from? Which server are you playing at?
So my name is Taylor. I obviously go by Rilok, and I'm a C-tier Succession Ranger from Texas in the United States, and I play on the North American server. I've been in the Guild Cho Nation for, God, I don't know, what, eight years at this point?
So, how did you find out of BDO and what caught your interest to stay in BDO?
So prior to BDO, I played a game called Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, and I kind of got tired of the community caring more about the game than the developers. So was looking for really anything else, anything new. And I had a friend who played at the time on the Korean server. He just recommended this game to me since it was getting ready to launch on the Western servers. So after seeing the graphics, after seeing the combat system and then trying the game out in beta, I was instantly hooked.
Have you ever taken a break from playing BDO? If so, what motivated you to come back?
Not really. One of the nice things about BDO, for me at least, is anytime I need like a quote unquote break, I could always just do like AFK, fishing or whatever the case may be and just have the game minimized. That's probably the closest I've gotten to taking a break in this game.
Yeah, I mean, whenever you need something, it's obvious that you can do something different and you can just take a break, but your character will still be online. You can also think that, okay, my character is online, I'm doing something in the game, and also I'm not playing the game. It's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I for the longest time for my like kind of job, it involved a lot of deploying. So there'd be months on end that I just flat out couldn't really be active in the game, but I still felt, I don't know, a sense of accomplishment. Whereas when I'm like making money passively or doing whatever else, because there's just so many AFK, I guess, opportunities in the game.
Exactly. How long have you been playing the class you're currently playing, the Succession Ranger? Have you tried any other classes?
Oh man, like I said, I've been playing the game. I've been playing Ranger actually since day one of beta. Like I think I saw, some old Ranger montage where it was just two Rangers fighting in the desert or something, and immediately as soon as beta came out, I made a Ranger. I haven't really had a desire to play another class just because my class archetype actually isn't in BDO. So for me, range is kind of the next best thing. I don't really plan on re-rolling until like a necromancer or a dot heavy class is introduced.
So what is making Succession Ranger is special, like more special than the other classes?
Oh man, for me, it's the range. In every game, in every meta, range is always going to be king. The ability to just kind of look in somebody's direction and just, insta delete them, it's a good feeling. There's a reason why people get so upset about it. BDO's no exception to this. I think the closest, at least for me, Rangers ever felt like it was kind of falling out of meta is when archers were introduced back in like 2019, I think. And even then, between the two classes, there's enough pros and cons to where they kind of even each other out.
So is your class evasion or damage reduction or both playable, and why?
Oh, that's a simple one. Damage reduction. Going evasion typically means either sacrificing accuracy or AP, which for a succession ranger, that's just not something you really should do. Awakening ranger can go full evasion or like an evasion hybrid, but generally it's going to take a bit of gear to before like getting to that point.
As I know, even an Awakening Ranger, you need to be like a gear lord to become like a evasion, as I know.
Yeah, it's there's not a lot of evasion passives that the class has. In fact, I think the only thing that they have going for them is like a BSR, 100% BSR, and that's what, like 7 evasion or something like that. You don't get to benefit a lot from evasion, like a mystic or a lawn or strike or whatever. So you have to have a lot of gear before you can start kind of thinking about evasion.
Yeah. So overall, we can say that Ranger is DR class.
Yeah.
Is your class newbie friendly? On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate its difficulty? If you want, you can separate and compare Succession and Awakening, then we can talk about Succession in detail.
Good question. I think Ranger is like an easy to play, hard to master kind of class. And this applies to both Awakening and Succession. So because of this, I would honestly rank Ranger 8 out of 10 in terms of like being newbie friendly. And this is more for PvP because it's an unforgiving class. The combos, they're really easy on Ranger. The damage is going to always be there. And again, this is for both Awakening and Succession. It's just unlike almost every other class in BDO, there's no real safety net, in the form of like escape mechanics or self heals or the ability, to kind of get back up after getting CC'd. You don't really have that as a ranger. So if you mess up, you're dead. If you are lacking in mini-map awareness or if you're just out of positioning, you're dead. And that kind of gets to a point where as you're new to the class, you're gonna mess up a lot. So you're gonna spend a lot of time just kind of dying. But if you're willing to put the time into the class, then it can be a pretty rewarding class to play.
Okay, thank you. We talk about in general, how is a ranger, what type of class. Let's dive in. We are curious about your thoughts on the PvE situation of Succession Ranger. Could you provide us with detailed information separately? How is she in an early game, mid game, and end game?
Yeah. So Succession Ranger overall, I would say is about average or even slightly below average for PvE. In early game PvE, it's actually not that bad. I would probably rank it like a 9 out of 10, and this is due to having like a handful of AOE skills like Descending Current, Will of the Wind, Extreme Charging Wind, and they're all pretty spammable. Unfortunately, as you move into like mid game PvE, it dips down to about 6 out of 10, and then about finally 5 out of 10 for in-game PvE. You're not able to really benefit from back attacks as much compared to a handful of other classes, and those same spammable AoE skills that you have, they just don't deal as much damage in these in-game spots when you just kind of need to burst down your classes or your mobs rather. You pair this with the lack of mobility, so being able to travel from pack to pack, and yeah, you get something that's a bit lackluster for PvE. I will say for Succession Ranger, the reason why I still do enjoy playing it is because it is kind of comfy. So it doesn't require a high APM. So if you're just kind of wanting to sit back, chill, and delete a few mobs, it's not that stressful of a grind.
So what would you just add something, like a few things maybe, to fix the PvE situation of the class? Because we all know that Succession Ranger is one of the dead class in the game.
I would probably, I don't know why they did this, but when Succession Ranger first released, we had a skill called Prime Ultimate Blasting Gust. It's, a bit of an AoE skill. It's, solid. I can't even say a solid damage. It's a skill that it initially was really good when it came to PvE. You didn't really use it that much in PvP because it didn't have a lot of range on it, but you could. It still had the damage, and they just kind of gutted the skill. This is something that I would say they could probably improve on. For Ranger, our fixes are very simple. It's just kind of more damage, at least for PvE. We also have skills like Tear and Arrow, where in PvP it's a spammable skill and it's a high damage dealing skill. It's one of our like core skills. But then in PvE, you can't really spam it, and it's just this weird kind of like situation where you only have a few skills and then they're not necessarily spammable. So you're kind of rotating and cycling all these different skills, and then you get to a point to where it's like, I didn't do any damage at all after that combo. So I would just say for a Ranger, it's a very simple fix. Just kind of up a lot of the PvE damage, especially on some of these skills that are extremely lackluster.
Thank you. Let's talk about a PvP. We are curious about your thoughts on PvP situation of Succession Ranger. Could you provide us with a detailed information separately? How is she for 1v1, 1vx, AOS, 5 vs 5, Guild League, Nodes, Siege, War of the Rose?
Yeah, all right. Overall, Succession Ranger is a large scale class. In a 1v1 situation, the class will struggle about in like 90% of the situations, unless the Succession Ranger just has a ton of gear and can delete the target before they've gotten close to the Ranger. The same is also said for like a 1vx situation, where unless there's a major gear or skill disparity, it's rare for the Succession Ranger to 1vx. AOS, 5v5s, Guild League, those are all what I would consider like small scale PvP, which is it's in a bit of a weird spot, honestly. Traditionally, this has been a weak point for Succession Rangers, but it seems like the developers kind of want the class to be good ever since the introduction of AOS. So I would say it's kind of manageable for a lot of these small scale PvP situations. It's much harder to perform, but it can be done. You gotta have really good awareness, and you gotta sweat a little bit for it. For Node Wars, Sieges, War of the Roses, yeah, this is that kind of large scale PvP setting where as a Succession Ranger, it's comfy. You're basically a strong contender for being the main character. It's easily a top 5 class for anything large scale PvP related, and the amount of DMs of people complaining about how your class should get nerfed is going to be plentiful.
So, is there a significant strong aspect of the class you're playing? For you, what you like in your class, strongest part and the weakest like that you do not like?
Yeah, I would say Succession Ranger, or just kind of an overall, it would be you're the typical glass cannon, class. You have a ton of damage from a distance, but I guess kind of the downside of that is everybody knows that. So you're public enemy number one. And the second somebody has closed the gap on you, you don't have a lot of options available to you. I think this is kind of what makes Succession Ranger a bit of a polarizing class. Generally it's only in those situations where people can't close the gap on a ranger, that it is now deemed a busted or broken class. But I would think that's kind of like one of the strong suits. It's you got all the damage in the world, but this, I guess, kind of the con is people are they're gonna fight to basically hard focus and target you because you can't exist. Any ranged threat just cannot exist in PvP. But this is by design. If you're able to kind of manage and kite, again, the class is really rewarding.
When I do PvP, when we see a succession ranger on top of rock, on top of wall, they like the shot caller generally hold that ranger. Do not let them just hit us. Generally, when you see few suck rangers, they generally say this. It's because it's that much dangerous for PvP if they just find a proper position. If they just start to pew, 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 you're dead. No way, you cannot go out.
I mean, I actually had a situation, well, not a situation, but just kind of an interesting encounter a few nights ago. I'm in an RBF, and there was this lawn who, like, for starters, you get to a point to where if people know that you have damage as a succession ranger, you can forget about it. They're gonna hard focus you. It's just a given. You just kind of have to play through it. This lawn, he had no buffs popped. I think he had like maybe 2 elixirs running, and as soon as he saw me, like I kind of tagged him a little bit, just a blasting gust, just a little bit of a little bit of damage, right? And then I saw his buff bar just get bigger and bigger, and I was like, "Oh crap, here we go!" And sure enough, like every attempt, it was just gunning for me. Didn't care about the rest of the team. Didn't care about anything else. It was like I gotta get Rilok. And after a while, I was like, okay, I gotta kind of adjust my positioning. I was in a Castle Ruins RBF, so I kind of like just stuck next to a Valk and a Zerker, and as this Lanus just dive bombing me, like it got to a point where he couldn't secure a kill, and yeah, it was nice. But that's, I guess, kind of like the whole Ranger experience in a nutshell. Like people are gonna gun for you, and I don't know, sometimes you can do something like positioning, and then other times it gets frustrating to play the class.
Thank you. Is there a mechanics or skill in your skill kit in your class that you would like to be buffed or nerfed?
Yeah, so funny enough, one of the mechanics I've wanted personally nerfed for a long time, and it should be getting nerfed in the near future, is hit stutter. This isn't necessarily a ranger specific mechanic, and it's not even really a mechanic that's supposed to be in the game, but it is something that rangers can benefit from. Skills like Razorwind are just notorious for causing hit stutters, and yeah, it is something that as a ranger, despite not liking it, I do benefit from it. So I'm glad that they're kind of removing it, or they're going to help mitigate it to some degree, because I just don't agree with it being in the game. I've always been somebody where I would rather them remove or fix or adjust things, especially that are kind of not desirable mechanics, like they shouldn't be in the game. So then afterwards, it's much easier to like rebalance and refocus on, okay, what is actually wrong with the class? What's something that is a bit lackluster or overtuned, and then going from there. I would love for them to do the same with the Zerker grab, because it sucks having to hold your V until the Zerker has done this full grab animation, especially in an AOS. Otherwise, you're just going to stay in their arms and then just come out of a V or something like that. But yeah, I would say one of the buffs that I think I would want with the class is we have a skill called Call of the Earth, which is just kind of like an accuracy buff. I wish it had like a secondary, like I guess, effect where if you just kind of ran within the vicinity of this tree, then it provided like a movement speed slow, like for anyone that walked relatively close to it. And again, I might be a little bit biased, but the reason why I would want this is because I think hypermobility has kind of gotten out of control the past few years. Like aside from, I guess, Mooses and Mewas, there's just so many classes that are just blindingly fast. I mean, within a blink of an eye, they're right in front of you, and they don't allow for a lot of reaction time. So I would honestly take a damage nerf if it meant mobility as a whole got nerfed.
Interesting idea. So we talked in general about the class, but I want to get some kind of brief summary from you. What are the good things and bad things on your class can offer to an average player? Let's say that I want to reroll to the Ranger, to the Succession Ranger. What should I expect from Succession Ranger as an EV?
I'm not going to say it's a high learning curve. It's because it's not, but you have to be a bit of a problem solver, I guess, when it comes to Succession Ranger. And for me, that's what makes the class fun. You're not going to have a situation where you can just kind of roll your face on the keyboard and end up with a kill. Anybody who has played the class has put time into being good at the class. And I think that's what's kind of fun. It's rewarding because once you've gotten over that initial hump of, dying a lot, then you've kind of developed the awareness that you need to have. And because you have all the damage in the world from a distance, you get to points where you're almost playing flawlessly. You dump a ton of damage out from a distance. Yeah, you're really squishy, but it makes you've made it too much of a pain to actually get close to you. And then I guess you can kind of start enjoying the class as it was meant to be played.
We talked about Succession Ranger, let's talk about game itself. What are your thoughts on BDO's current situation from past until now?
So I think BDO overall is trending in a good direction, even when there's, kind of decisions here and there that I personally don't agree with, like the war deck changes. Could there be things that the developers improve on the PvP scene? Sure. But the same can be said for PvE or life scaling or just social aspects of the game. And that's the point. Depending on why you play BDO, everyone's going to have their own list of items they think the devs should prioritize. And across multiple players, servers, regions, expecting the devs to get everything right is easier said than done.
What do you think PA company does well and bad? I mean, overall you said it, but if you were in charge, let's say that you are the new Mr. J, what would you like to add and remove from the game? One thing to add, one thing to remove, just today.
Oh man, I got a list. I guess so. I think PA is actually pretty good about the amount of content that they push into the game and the time of which they do it. I know a lot of people are gonna say, "What are you talking about?" Just when people kind of started to feel like things were getting a bit stale, they introduced accessory hammers and they introduced a grind event. So you have a ton of people now that are actively grinding, all the silver in the world so they can get these hammers, so they can progress their gear much faster than we've seen in years, right? So I think that's something that they do pretty well on. I do wish one thing I wish PA did a bit differently is add more items that people can kind of show off. And every MMO having the ability to kind of show off something that you've worked hard for, or just logging in for the very first time and just seeing, things that people have, whether it's, different mounts or mount skins or just whatever, and saying, well, how do I get that? And then starting your own kind of long journey to getting these things, I think is something that's a bit lacking in BDO. Yeah, we have T10 horses, we have the Nuvarin or Zeka costume. Those are awesome. We have a few titles that give aura effects, but I would want to see more. And it's there. We have, we have mounts. Will give us more mount costumes, give us different mount skins, more player costumes, player titles that have aura effects like a lightning or a digital or a smoke effect, weapon effects. Like the list just goes on and on. Give us something that shows the amount of time and effort that people have invested in this game, because you have especially veterans who have spent years playing this game, and it kind of sucks. You've worked so hard to get this item to a pin, right? And the only thing you have for it is just link it in chat. Like, come on. Yeah, you have treasure piece items, and it's like, oh, you have a title, and I guess that's not bad. But then you also have things, decorative items that you can put in your house. The problem is who's going into player housing? Like there's no reason to do it. So adding stuff like that's just more, I guess it kind of brings the community together, and it makes sense. And again, it gives people a reason to want to go grind out these things that they never thought that they would actually have a passion for. Something else I guess I would want is I would want more community leisure kind of things added to the game. Yeah, PvP and PvE content should be focused, but there's also a handful of people who will just log into this game just to socialize. I mean, you go into any, on any server, there's a handful of people probably chilling in BA1. So having a lot of these, not necessarily social like activities, but give people a reason to kind of socialize, because they're the ones who make the game feel alive. Whenever you log into a game the very first time and you're in Heidel or something and you see just a plethora of people just kind of, hanging out, like it makes the world feel a bit more vibrant. I feel like that's also something that's a bit lackluster in BDO. And then lastly, because my focus for this game is generally PvP, I would like to see a lot more attention in that department. I get it if the devs are pushing for more consensual PvP. It's so weird to say that, man. But I guess if they're going that route, then well, let's go all in. Okay, let's get more RBF maps. Let's get more AOS maps. Let's get more Arsha events, because as of right now, it does feel a bit stale. In the early days of BDO, PvP was a bit like fun and exciting because conflict resolution over grind spots was directly tied to your progression and the progression of entire guilds. This was done either through PvPing over the grind spots or forming alliances to defend against stronger guilds, or backstabbing allies in node wars and sieges so your guild could progress. Like it just felt more alive because it was directly tied to your progression. We don't really have that anymore, and now you have this mindset of, well, what's the point of PvPing? I mean, unless you're somebody who really enjoys just PvPing, there is no reason, especially when you have this long plethora of buffs going on, and who wants to waste 50 100 mil worth of buffs for like 3 minutes of PvP? I think maybe going back to the basics of tying vertical progression to like money making is a good start. There's an entire desert. I mean, this game's called Black Desert, right? There's an entire desert that could just be used for all kind of different events during nighttime in the game, on Arsha, whatever the case may be, that would allow for a ton of silver in a very short amount of time. And then that would be a reason to PvP over this precious resource in the Black Desert.
Thank you. I mean, in one of part of your recommendations, advices to the PA, I've heard that more costumes. While you're talking that, I think that maybe they can make the Orzekas sellable on the marketplace as a costume, and also they can maybe add Orzekas are also like they can change into something like a mount costume. Orzeka mount costume, and you can only get from an in-game. Imagine that your costumes in your horse, it fits with your own costume. That would be good.
I'm all for just being able to log in and or working for something over a long period of time and then seeing the results of that. Not just, oh, let me go ahead and exclamation point gear and now I see, the amount of effort or the amount of luck that somebody's had in their gearing. It's like, no, there's somebody put a lot of time into getting the Orzeka costume, or they put a lot of time into getting the Nuver costume. You can expand on that. Why is it that the Pegasus is the only tier 10 mount that has an additional skin? Like you can I guess build on that. You can have more costumes that are just, I wouldn't mind if you could sell some of these costumes on the market, but at least make it to where you did it through doing something in the game. For example, I think the AOS armor for getting top 100, awesome idea. What I don't like is that it's the same armor every season. Like mix it up, have
Exactly.
different things. For RBFs, you have some people who spend their entire life in RBFs. Make it to where you can kind of, through using ret seals, you can buy this RBF armor where it's like, look, here's the amount of time that somebody's invested into this aspect of the game. Or we have dungeons now. The same thing can be said for dungeons. Like I think the ability, again, just to show off the amount of effort and time you've put into the game is never a bad thing.
Yeah, I totally agree. What advice would you like to give to newbies, returnees, and other players?
My advice would be kind of go at your own pace. Everybody talks about that whole like it's a marathon, not a sprint. But then these are the same people who are spending like 6 to 8 hours grinding. So seriously, take it slow and just kind of enjoy the game. Yeah, there's an optimal way to do everything in this game, but don't get so hard focused on that you forget to actually enjoy the game. Because if you're not enjoying the game you're playing, then what are we doing? And then I would say also join an active guild. There's so much into this game that it's easy to feel overwhelmed. And yeah, most streamers in BDO have no problem with helping you out with any questions you might have. But if you don't know to ask a specific question, then they can't give you that answer. Whereas if you're just kind of like chilling in guild, whether it's the Discord or you're just reading something passively through the active guild chat, then you can say, whoa, what are y'all talking about? What do you mean I can do this or make, a bill an hour if I just change this one little thing? Like join an active guild. It's going to save you a lot of time, and it's going to just make the overall process, I think, a little bit more fun.
Thank you. We are reaching the end of the interview. Is there anything else you would like to add before we finish?
Yeah, I would say at the end of the day, it's a game. Don't take it too seriously, you know? There's a lot more to life than just BDO, so don't forget to enjoy all those other things as well. Take care of yourself because nobody's going to care more about you than you. And lastly, be nice. I mean, I get it. It's a game and we all love a little bit of spice, but understand that there is a line not to cross it because we all got to log off at some point.
I want to thank to you. I mean, the Rilok just came here and he just shared his thoughts. And I think this will be extremely helpful to someone who's looking for a Succession Ranger because we do not have enough content on YouTube or Twitch like about Succession Ranger on the few and limited things. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, guys, please check his Twitch channel. You're already seeing the links on the screen right now. Please check his Twitch stream. You will love him. He helps people a lot. Alright, guys, do not forget, video is just a game. Have a nice game.